right, Ryan, we've got to talk about it. Carson Beck threw 3 interceptions in Jacksonville yesterday. We're driving back. I'd love to talk about the defense. I'd love to talk about the emergence of the run game in a way, Nate Frazier, but we got to talk about the quarterback. Georgia's got a quarterback problem right now. What's going on, Ryan? Is he seeing ghosts? He's playing worse and worse, and they've got to figure it out.
It's bad. He's just making bad choices. I think it comes down to decision making, and you hear NFL scouts, GMs, coaches, all that. Just football people in general, quarterback position, one of the biggest traits that you need to be good at, qualities you need to have, is your decision making, strong choices, and that's just not happening. He's throwing into double coverage. I was on the move yesterday during his second out of 3 interceptions. So it was during riding home. I was talking about how the first one and the third one were both on him, like 100%. And then I saw the second one later, and it was the worst one of the 3.
He's making freshman and sophomore mistakes that you shouldn't see from a guy who's in his 5th year. Exactly. It's his 2nd year starting. He was in this 20 class with Arian Smith, and I don't know. He's been
that was
with
the Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud class.
Yeah. Georgia recruited C.J. Stroud. He was at that Georgia-Texas A&M game at 19 and was just on his phone the entire time. He wanted nothing to do with that visit. But
I would have too. That game was boring.
It was so boring. But Carson Beck was very good last year. He was phenomenal against Kentucky and Ole Miss, and we've seen really, really good Carson Beck. We haven't seen that guy in at least 2 games. But the turnovers are a problem. I talked about last week, the only way Georgia loses to Florida is if they turn the ball over and shoot themselves in the foot. But this is the 2nd game where he's been awful, 3 interceptions, and they still win by 14. I don't think they can do that in Oxford, though. But right now, this team can still win a national championship, but not the way he's playing. We got to see 2023 Carson Beck.
Yeah, no, it's surprising that he's regressed, right? I mean, it's at this point that's just the case. I said it, I think, in riding home last night. We're past the point of saying, okay, he doesn't have a Brock Bowers, he doesn't have a Ladd McConkey, he doesn't have whatever. He's got good weapons, and they do need to do better, right? Dylan Bell drops a couple passes, but that has nothing to do with him throwing into double coverage, with him he threw into triple coverage on that 2nd interception last night. And if the first guy didn't catch it, the 2nd guy was going to catch it. I mean, it would have been an interception either way. And he's not throwing the ball his way as much. Look, quarterbacks don't want to throw the ball, right? I get it. But he does do it sometimes.
Throw the ball away.
Throw it in the dirt. But there's some where he just needs to tuck it, right? It happened against Alabama when he was scrambling, and in the 4th quarter, it was the 4th quarter, and they're trying to mount that comeback. They lost a couple minutes because of that fumble and that turnover. He didn't tuck the ball when he was getting sacked.
Just take the sack at times.
Just take the sack. He was getting sacked yesterday, and he threw in the middle of the sack, and it went to another dude.
So let's talk about other factors, right? The offensive line is jumbled a lot. There's different guys. There's not a set 5. They weren't their best. I think you have to give a little credit to Florida's pass rush, because they made some plays and they got to Carson and rattled him a little bit. But an elite quarterback, which is what we've been calling Carson Beck, at least I was all offseason, an elite quarterback doesn't need elite players. Right now, it feels like Carson Beck needs a Ladd McConkey and a Brock Bowers, which is a little concerning, but there's no Ra Thomas, there's no Colby Young.
Yeah, it hurts. Anthony Evans, not that he plays that much. He wasn't available to them yesterday. But
Dylan Bell is playing sometimes like he is banged up. He doesn't look 100%. It doesn't look like Dom Lovett is as explosive or quick and twitchy as we've seen. He did score, and he makes big catches for them, but sometimes it does feel like they need that 6'4", 6'5" receiver. I mean, there's a couple of times where Dylan Bell, it's just out of his reach, right? And, you would like more guys with a bigger catch radius than what these guys bring to the table. But, Mike Bobo, I thought, did a good job of mixing it up in the second half. They got creative. They got Dylan Bell on a reverse. They got, I think, Dom Lovett on a creative type of play. But he said, what we're doing is clearly not working. Carson's just not seeing the field right now. He's making bad decisions. Let's get the ball out of his hand a little quicker. They went to more screens, short passes. And what happened? They scored 28 points, right? And they got the ground game moving without their best back. But they scored 34 points. I do think Mike Bobo's doing a good job, which is crazy to say in a way, but Carson Beck is playing worse than Mike Bobo is coaching, if that makes sense to me.
Yeah,
but they're a beat-up group too, Ryan.
I didn't really have a problem with the play calling,
Yeah.
It's not Mike Bobo's fault that the team's not executing the screen pass. It's not his fault that Carson threw one to nobody yesterday.
But at some point, it's a little bit, right?
Yeah, part prepared. Of it is calling plays that are what your offense is good at, what's going to work. The Auburn game this season was a good example of that. It was as vanilla as it could have gotten, and that's probably what it needs to be for Georgia. Maybe it needs to be a little bit vanilla with the sprinkle of chocolate here and there, with the sprinkle of a trick play and downfield passing. I think until at least Carson gets comfortable again, I think that might be a fix. But, Matt, I'm just sitting here thinking while you're talking, maybe a big part of all this is just, unrealistic is probably not the right word, but such high expectations and such a high standard. This team is just not as good as it was a couple years ago, and I think that our thought process is stuck on, hey, they dominated, they won a championship. Now it's championship or bust. That's what this program has become, and that's Kirby's fault. And it's a good thing that that's Kirby's fault. But now that we're in a championship or bust situation with this program, we're nitpicking extra. This team is winning these games despite playing bad. This team this is not a 3-loss team. This is a 1-loss team by a small margin. And the reason why we're being so critical is because the expectation is for them to compete for a championship in the end. So it's a little bit harsh. It's not really harsh on Carson. It's just not been that good.
When you throw 3 picks, you're going to hear about it.
But I think that other phases need criticism as well. I think that the offensive line, they're just not bullying the way I thought they were going to bully.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much it affects you when you're rotating in and out and they're switching up people at different spots, and Xavier Truss is playing guard and tackle, and Monroe Freeling's on the left and the right side. I don't know if that causes a problem or not. I don't think that they would do it if it does, right?
They have to a little bit, but Tate Radledge, it didn't look like he played a ton yesterday.
No.
He may have started, but he wasn't out there. Micah Morris gets banged up. The first interception, you had Monroe Freeling at left tackle, no Ernest Green, and then Xavier Truss at right tackle. I don't know if he was banged up for a series or two there. So they do mix and match a lot, but at the same time, pre-snap, Carson still knows what he's doing. He's not confused. I think it's once the ball is snapped, the moment's not too bright for him because he is out there making calls, identifying the linebacker, moving, blocking assignments around, audibling to different plays. So he does know what he's doing. I think he's just pressing too much, and he's trying to do a little too much and throwing into windows that just aren't there. I don't know if, again, that might go to seeing ghost, or he thinks he can throw it through guys that, I don't know.
One of the problems is he is not the superior talent that can get away with those types of plays. He just isn't. He's a very good quarterback. He's got a very good arm, but he doesn't have that arm, right? He doesn't have like a Caleb Williams type of arm where he can get away with a lot of BS plays like that where he rips it into windows. And we've seen him rip it into some windows, but he's just making bad choices, and it's hurting the team, and he knows that he's taking responsibility. We're driving past a billboard, right? We talked about NIL. Right now, we are driving past a Morgan & Morgan Carson Beck billboard, right?
Carson's on it right there.
And we were having a discussion before we started recording. There is going to be more pressure. This is going to be more like the NFL when it's very public that you're making a lot of money. It's very public that you've got these big brand deals and you're dating a social media star. Look, I don't want to talk about that, but it's just part of the fact that he's a public figure at this point. He's not seen as a true amateur because of the financial aspect.
He's got a Lamborghini,
and it's this, anyone else would be getting criticized. It's not just because it's Carson Beck. He's all chill on the sideline and all of that. It would be any quarterback in this position. So
the only way they lose, Ryan, is if they turn the ball over 4 times, right? Take care of the football, and Georgia could win a national championship, but they need the run game. That is inconsistent because so many guys are banged up, man. That running back room would have looked so much different with a healthy Rod Robinson and with a 100% confident, healthy Branson Robinson. But no one's 100%, right?
No.
But
And now ETN's not 100%.
yeah, thankfully, Cash Jones has been one of the secret kind of MVPs. I mean, they need him when he's
A
out
little bit
there.
of an X factor type of player for them.
He plays hard and he makes plays when he's out there.
Yeah, he's earning snaps for a reason, and Frazier, the talent's there. Obviously, still a freshman, right?
Yeah.
Not as good in pass pro, not as good in some other aspects of the game. Yeah, I think those are things that'll come along. I do think he deserves to get out there, though, right? Obviously, he's shown the explosion of the twitch, but the offensive line's got to be better. They're asking Carson to do a lot. I think that they think they can because they can and they believe in him, and that's good. But if they run the ball better, they won't have to throw it as much, and throwing will be easier. It's super important. It's the biggest difference in this team to the past 15 or 20 Georgia teams. Is they're not running super well.
Yeah, when you ask Carson Beck to throw it 40, 45, 50 times, you're going to have 3 interceptions. That's a lot of passes. He's going to make mistakes when you ask him to throw it that many times. It got to get better. We're saying it every Sunday morning, though. Carson Beck's got to play better. Carson Beck's got to play better. Hopefully, we're not saying that in 7 days after the Ole Miss game, but this team is really good with their quarterback throwing a lot of interceptions.
Yeah.
Final thoughts?
If he's bad next week, right? If it's similar next week and they lose, we'll be talking about it a little bit differently. If it's similar next week and they win, then this is just what it is at this point for now, right? And we should just expect them to turn the ball over until further notice. I mean, I was pretty shocked when I heard 11 interceptions in the last 5 games. I had to double check it because I was like, "There's no way," and it was true.
They're adding up quick.
It was true, and more interceptions than touchdowns is not good. It's not good. It's a negative.
No.
It's a net negative, and he has it in him. We've seen it.
And that's
He's just
the
got to
thing.
tap back into that, and that's why there's a defense for him. It's not that he's never. It's because he has played well, and because he has had elite moments, and because I thought it was ridiculous. Okay, I've told you guys, I thought it was ridiculous that he was projected to be #1 pick in the first place, and all that, and that it was this far and away thing. That was unfair to him, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe some of this has gotten to his head, but right now, first round is off the table, and second round's off the table too. He can get back into that mix, but it's probably over, because as much as the tape can get better for the next couple of months, this tape exists too.
Yeah, absolutely. I still think he's got it in him. I still think this team can win a national championship. But right now, he's playing really, really bad football. That's just a fact. But I think he can turn it around. We'll see.
Yeah, he can't turn it around. That's why we still think this is a championship team. It's not a championship team if he continues to play like this, though, and that's the truth.
Yeah. See ya.